Okay, so we're going to start looking at foliage very quickly. Because foliage is really, really easy. It's quite a fun little thing to do. We're going to look at doing this the really basic way. Of course, you can do this kind of stuff inside of Painter as well. But I'm going to show us in Photoshop. The only benefits to doing it in Painter is you can paint directly into normal maps, all this kind of jazz. It's a bit of a schlep to set up because you've got to change it to the right display shader, which will allow you to do at least see transparencies in the scene, all that kind of stuff. But we might do that in a little bit. But I'm just going to show us how to do it to understand this kind of stuff the basic way. So what I've done here is just made a 1024 by 1024 texture, and on this one I don't actually need a texture plane to texture on top of because I'm just going to do this inside Photoshop. And number one, what I'm going to do is set up the most important map, which is the opacity map. Opacity meaning black and white. So if something is black, it's completely transparent. We can't see it. If something is completely white, we can see it and we can't see through it. And then you've got your gradients of grey as well. So the darker something is, the more you're going to see through it. However, that does raise a couple of issues on a technical level because you have to set up your materials correctly so that it understands how to process that information. Unfortunately, opacity is quite a complex thing to manage when it comes to transparency, because transparency in game engines is a bit tricky to set up properly, because we've talked about draw clouds a little bit, but if we've got many different transparencies on top of each other, sometimes they have difficulty reading through each other. Like in the real world, we can see glasses, all these murky glasses in a row, we can see through them up until a point. Transparency in the digital world, it's a bit different because it's just a bit different. It's quite difficult to explain. But what I'm going to do is just make it. So I'm going to make a new layer. So that's I've made my background black, and I've got my let me bring my tablet down, and I've got a new layer. I'm just going to have that be white, and I'm going to get a brush which has absolutely no texture to it, just a straight up white brush. Make sure I've got no opacity levels. Make sure I've got no flow levels. Make sure I've got no opacity on stroke kind of stuff. This is just black or it's white, like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and think about what I'm going to use in the scene. I'm going to do a little bit of a layout that I normally do, but when you do this, you just got to think about the different plants you're going to use and the different grasses you're going to use. Because remember, inside our handbook, we've got parameters, like kind of our deliverables, our base deliverables. So variations of grasses, variations of plants, and then a focal piece essentially. So, and we keep them terms very loosely because grass, you can interpret grass as many different things. Obviously, the grass we all know and love, which is this kind of stuff, down to, you know, if we're doing some sort of underwater scene, then we might see some kind of coral as grass. For me, in the foliage world, grass is a minor element. There's a ton of it, but it's not super eye-catching, like green grass in a field. Flowers are something that's a bit more eye-catching. And a focal piece is something like a tree or a cactus. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just have a think about stuff. So I'm going to have this top row here be grass. Straight up grass. And then I might do a variation underneath it. And then I'm going to do something to do with twigs in this area. And then I'm going to have something to do. Well, that's, you know, here I'm going to have. Yeah, I'm going to have twigs here. Then over here I'm going to have a couple of blocks of colour, which I'll explain in a bit. And then I may have some flower heads here and some leaves here. Okay. So all I'm going to do is just start to make some basic grass kind of information. And I'm going to do them in clumps. So this is like clump 1. Clump 2. Clump 3. Clump 4. Clump 5. And then one more. Making sure they're all relatively at the same position on the ground as well. And I'm doing this on a different layer as well, because this layer here I just did as a frame. Then I'm only doing that as demonstration. So okay, there are my grasses. And I said I was going to do a variation, so all I'm going to do is copy paste that down. Copy paste. Go away. Duplicate that. Oh, I've got the bloody keyboard up now. There you go. And then just move that downwards like that. Okay. Let's combine those two together. Merge visible. Oh, not merge visible. Merge layers. Thank you. There we go. So might as well just take those two away for now, because I don't need them. Right. Underneath there, so twigs, because maybe I want to do some kind of a shrubbery. So here I'm just going to make some branches very quickly. Oh, actually, you know what I need to do as well is make sure that I'm not, if these are two separate branches, that I'm not kind of invading their space like that. So, and then, spend a bit of time making some branches kind of stuff. And then maybe one more like that. One thing I'm avoiding is having breaks in my thing. I want my lines to be consistent. Okay. I've got a weird song in the background on. There you go. Now these two I said they're going to be on blocks, of course. I'm going to leave them alone for the time being. Here are going to be some petals. So not petals, sorry, leaves. So I'm going to do might be very cheeky, make one leaf and then do a couple of duplicates. Again, to make sure it's all solid white. So when I'm erasing stuff as well, I want to make sure that the brush I'm using has not got any fall off, softness or anything like that. I want a block brush with no opacity or anything like that. There you go. I'm just going to take that. Oop. Copy it over, copy it over, copy it over. Oh, come here. There you go. So I've got 4 variations there. And I can, maybe this one's got a bit of a thing taken out. This one's kind of eaten up. This one, maybe it's just a little bit of a different kind of shape. Variations are variations. You do what you want. This one's going to get very eaten. There you go. Cool. Variations. See how quick this is. It's awesome. And you got some flowers here. So now flowers, again, they can go from very elaborate down to incredibly simple. So I'm going to do 3 different flowers here. So I'm going to do something really simple. I'm going to do that. That's perfectly fine for a flower head. And then I'm going to do something a bit more elaborate. Let me just get, that's a bit distracting. There we go. Yeah. Something like that. Let me just move that into a bit of a better place because that's not in a very good place at all. There you go. So there. And within that shape here, it's all going to be whatever I want to do. And in fact, what I'm going to do is make a something that looks like this. Now some of these I can be a bit rough with. They don't have to be neat because nature is not neat. Nature is chaos, as I've said before. So I've got 3 variations there. And you can do as many as you want. Cool. And then, like I said, these 2 bits on the side here, I'm just going to block those in as big, just a big old white section. Come on, there you go. Boom, like that. So that's what I've got at the end of that. Well, how quick was that to make? Incredibly quick to make. So what I've got is I've got 2 variations of grass at the very top. Although, if you're clever with it, you only really need 1 because if you're comfortable with doing some of the material stuff in Unreal, you can just basically shift the color, hue, saturation, this kind of stuff on these geysers, which basically leaves you 2 lines to do stuff with. Cool. Now here's the really fun bit. I've done that work already. So what I'm going to do is actually export this as a JPEG, because I'm also going to do is check this in Maya first. But unfortunately, Maya doesn't accept PNGs as alphas anymore. So we just want to do JPEGs while we're checking. So I'm going to export that, and I'm going to put that in a folder. So I might as well make a new, like a demo folder on my desktop. Demo. There you go. And this is my texture foliage 1 opacity. There you go. Cool. So yeah, what am I going to do now is make a layer above everything and do a clipping mask. So make sure that's above all the white information I've just put on. I'm going to turn that into a clipping mask. There you go. So on this, I can just do whatever I want. So I'm just going to put here. I'm just going to start getting colors. I'm just going to... There you go. Boom. Bit of color there. Do my second variation here, and I'm doing this. The flat colors all on the exact same layer for now. So this is going to be a little bit more maybe desaturated. So like that. These are just going to be brown. So like a desaturated brown, like that. My leaves, I'm going to take. In fact, I'm going to do 2 variations of leaves here. So I'm going to do these 2, which are going to be taken off this green palette. There we go. And I'm going to do these 2 as this green palette. Like that. Nice. Now this big section here I made, this big white section, what I'm going to do is just put a green in this for now. But what I'm going to do is use this whole block to have 2 versions, or as many versions as I want, of gradients. Because if you think of big long grasses, or like these big thick long grasses that you see, and I'm not talking about grasses like that big, I'm talking about the ones that you saw a lot in the 90s in people's front gardens that are like, they're almost like aloe vera like kind of grasses, the big thick things, huge, bigger than me. So I'm going to turn that into that in a second, and let me just, so this is going to be an off yellow, kind of thing. This is going to be at first a bit of a purple thing, like a lavendery kind of tone, and this one's going to be a red thing. There we go. So far so good. Now if I release the clipping mask, we're going to see that everything's just a block color at first, and that's great because obviously the clipping mask is doing all the work. So I'm going to make another layer above that, clipping mask that one, and then I'm just going to do my general Photoshop stuff. So coming back up here, I'm going to start going over the shadows of each of these, or the darker tones. So on this, I want to have like a bluey green shadow underneath it. So this is all going to be multiply. And now this is where I can start using paint techniques essentially, because I've got all my flat colors and I've got all my flat white shapes. So boom, there you go. And I might even, like for grass, you don't really need to come in and do this kind of thing because too much information on grass can be a bit eye-catching. But you know, you can maybe add a little bit. You know, especially if 2 of them get too close like that, it can make them look like they're leaning against each other, or even overlapping. So you know, you just do a bit of whatever, like that, and I can go through and just keep doing that kind of thing. So that's already added a little bit more information to the object. Now this one I'm going to just be like this. Again, it will multiply layer. There we go. Now what I'm going to do as well is just take what I've got here and set it up inside Maya. Just let me bounce up Maya. Now I've already exported my opacity map as a PNG. Sorry, not a PNG, it's a JPEG. So I'm going to bring that in first. I'm going to show you how to set up materials inside Maya. We've not done that for anything just yet because everything so far has been basically stuff we can do inside Painter straight away. We don't need to check anything. Sometimes you need to check stuff in Maya to make sure it's, or even set it up inside Maya, but you need to have the textures to basically set it up. So, and foliage is one of those. Like, I can't build my clumps of foliage knowing stuff ahead of time. It's a bit hard to do. So what I'm going to do is just make a plane like that. I'm just going to add a new material to that. So let's just make a Lambert. I'm going to call this Foliage 1. Because maybe I might make a another foliage later on. So how I did that as well, just hovering over the object I want to apply this to, hold right click, down to assign favorite material, and then to Lambert. Now I'm only assigning favorite material when I want a brand new material. If you want to reapply an existing material to something else, you go down to existing, and it should be in this list. That's really important because what I've been noticing is people are, when they're setting up the different materials for Unreal, what they're doing is every object they're applying new materials on each one of them. So the scene starts to really slow down, things start to even break and kind of collapse. That's because they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of materials. Where really what you should be thinking about is how many, what object has got the most amount of materials on it. And let's say you've got an object which has 5 materials on it. A plastic material like that you would pull from different textures. If you pull in everything from one texture, it doesn't matter. It's only one material. But if you're doing a bunch of like trim sheet and tiling texture and stuff, you know, you've got a big marble texture, you've got some wood texture, stuff off a trim sheet. You would assign a different material per texture sheet, per material. But inside Maya, I would just have a pool of say 5 different materials. So if I just make a few like this. So whenever I think, all right, you know what, I've this object has 2 materials applied to it inside of Unreal, I'll just come down to my existing and then just apply 2 materials. I'm not going to go to favorite because I don't want to add a new material. I want to use a material from my pool of things I've already made. Because it really doesn't matter about the color that's inside here. It doesn't matter about the name or the type of material. Because all that gets ignored when you take it into Unreal, and then all we get are just material slots. Anyway, so we've got a material here, and on the right hand side here, if I'm in normal, I'm not in UV mode or anything like this, I'm just in normal general mode here. What should pop up is your attributes editor here that contains your materials. If you don't see that, you want to come over to this little 3 dots. There's like 3 plugs, I call it, up the top right of the screen. The middle button, I call them 3 plugs. That's your attributes editor. And you want to look for your Foliage 1, or whatever you've named that material. And then what I'm going to do is look for transparency, because that's the thing that controls how see-through something is. And I'm going to click on the checkerboard to the right-hand side of it. That will bring up this menu, which is on the other monitor, like that. And it's basically asking me what I want to apply. So we've got all these different things we can technically apply. Now, just because all I'm doing here is just checking and creating the actual foliage clusters, the foliage arrangements in here. I just want to use that opacity map I made. The opacity map is classed as a file, so I want to add a file. And then here, right away, it says, boom. Okay, then show me where it is. So what I'm going to do is click on where it says image name. And I'm going to go to where that file is. Now, this should be in the images folder of your project, obviously. I've saved mine to a demo folder just because I didn't have a project set up for this. But you should be saving this to your project folders. There we go. So I've added it in, and you can see here in the samples a little image pops up. And we can see our name here. But we don't actually see anything in the scene. We're like, oh my god, what's happening? It's just because we've not got textures turned on. So up on the little mini menu bar up here, we've got the little checker ball, not the half one, the full checker ball here. If we click that, we turn on our texture. Hey, look at that. We can also press 6 on the keyboard to turn on our textures, and that's what we got. So if you've got nothing appearing, even though you've got this click, you've turned on your material, your textures here, check that you've not saved your image as a PNG. That's probably going to be the reason. Now also, just something to point out, because of how textures work and tiling textures work, you might see some of this happening. So this is basically where you got this block of white in the bottom corner here. It's actually just touching the edge of the UV, so it's like it ever so slightly starts to repeat. And the same for the bottom, it's just touching the bottom of the UV there. It's ever so slightly, like a single pixel is being repeated there. So what I can do, just to show you some cool stuff, before I go on, I might think, you know what, I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop. I'm going to go back to my opacity layer, which controls everything. And all I'm going to do is just take a nano millimeter of stuff off from each side there and there, like that. And notice how the opacity maps controlling that. I don't have to touch the color maps. It's just the opacity maps that are doing that. So what I'm going to do is export that again as a JPEG. And just like we would do with Unreal files, I'm going to override this file and say, yes, I want to replace it. So if I jump back to Maya here, what I'm going to do is click. Make sure I can see my attributes editor. Make sure I can see my foliage. I'm going to click where it says samples. And what you won't be able to see is, because I have it selected, it kind of covers it up, is what it does is anything that's plugged in, anything that I've applied to the surface, it basically runs through and rechecks all those. And if anything's checked, well, it just basically reapplies all the textures we've applied. And if anything's changed in any of the textures, obviously it'll update it. So now we don't have that little thing on either side. So cool. So you can see there that that is a transparent object. One thing I'm going to do is just go to lighting and two-sided, because if I look underneath, especially when I'm in the black area, the black background, you can't see anything because the back of a polygon is black. If I go to lighting two-sided, it basically shows both sides of the texture at the same time, which is good. So what I'm going to do is do my usual thing. I'm going to duplicate that and move it to the side. So this is my hero piece. This is where it all starts. I'm going to go down the production line essentially. So what I'm going to do now is go through and separate each one of these things into its own little face area. So with my in its face area, what does that even mean? I'm going to start to basically create a panel for each one of these, so I can split them up in a little bit. So with my multi-cut tool, what I'm going to do is just start to add edges, and this is why I wanted everything to be roughly on the same level. Oh, I should actually go back because my Photoshop file, I've just realised, is wrong. There we go. So I accidentally had things applied that I didn't want. So I should only export the very, very solid white image. Yeah, because if I apply colour into an opacity map, what it's going to do is take any black values in there and start using it as opacity. And any colour that isn't stark white will have a value of black in it. So yeah, so you can see there, you can still see the shadow because I accidentally uploaded the wrong image. But if I click sample now, it basically rereads it and updates a new one. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, again, with a multi-cut tool, I'm going to start to just from there. Oh, make sure I don't clip it actually. Be careful about that. There you go. Can I trim any off the top here? Like that. There you go. I'll do the one below it. So let me just do that. There we go. And I'm going to start creating actually a bunch of n-gons at the very, very beginning, because I'm not just going to hold control and start doing this, because I'm going to be cutting across other elements. So what I'm going to do is like start from here, and I think, right, I can probably cut down the side there. So I'm going to start here, just hold control and shift to drag a perpendicular line down. So now I'm creating a bit of a barrier there. I could probably go a bit closer actually on that one. Okay. Now this is quite interesting as well, because I've made this n-gon by using this edge here. So if I go back, so if I hold control, I can add an edge going down the entire length like that. But if I make an n-gon on this very end side here, so let's go for about right there. So from there down, holding control shift. What it does is it turns this whole group of faces on the right hand side into n-gons, which means it'll only create edges from this second line down to this fourth line down. Like that. So what I can do is go through and just make my little cages. That. I think I'm even going to do another one just to put like here, like that. So what I've been able to do here is actually give each blade of grass, each cluster of grass, its own little area there. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is just delete the stuff I don't need. So I'm going to go delete all them, delete that. Yep. So delete all them, and then delete the ones there. Obviously, if your grass or your elements are very, very, very close to each other, you might not have the liberty of being able to have separations like this, which means I'm probably going to have to do it with some of this below, which means you have to approach things a little bit differently in a second. But there you go. Now, because those are all, at least this top row here, are all separated, physically not touching anything, what I can do is just click separate right there, or extract. It used to be called separate, and it will separate off these bits. So now they're all actual physically separate objects. The ones below it though are still technically attached to the main clump. So what I can do is go through and pick a face, separate, or extract. Grab a face, extract. Grab a face, extract. Grab a face, extract. So you go through and just extract them all. Like that. So now they're all separate. So now I've got all these separate from each other. Now I'm going to do just the rest. I'll go through, and first of all, actually, I will clean up the n-gons that I've made. So you can see if I go to vertex mode, I've got all these floating vertex at the top. I want to get rid of them. Don't want them. That's naughty stuff. And then I might have them on these as well. So I'm just going to check these that were attached to the main clump down here, just to see if there is. I can cut some of these, I can trim these off a little bit more as well, because this one, for instance, I can trim that top bit off. I don't need that. Get off. Or I could leave it, you know, it doesn't really matter. Where I might catch myself out here is if I go back and update this texture and make it a bit longer, I'm going to be cutting off this UV, this section. So I'm going to leave one long, whatever. Okay, so yeah, I got rid of all those vertexes at the top there. And then come in there with the multi-cut tool again and start doing the same thing. So grabbing this twig like that, grabbing this twig like that, and this twig like that. So cut off what I can, and then just click and extract what I then have to do next. Like that. Boom. Second bit. Now this bit here, I'm actually going to get rid of that completely. I don't actually need this bit. This big old white section. Don't need that. So I'm just going to completely get rid of that one. Like that can just go straight away. Boom. Like that. So careful to make sure that, yep, there you go. See, my keyboard's in the wrong position, so I keep pressing the wrong buttons. There we go. I can again get rid of them. Let's extract each one of these. This is the most boring part of it for me. It's just like doing all the extraction and separating stuff off. It gets a bit tedious, but it's fine. And last one, just these bits here. Now some of this we're probably going to kind of zhuzh up a little bit anyway later on, but like fix up, but for now this is all good. Because there are things we can do. So let's extract. There you go. Right. Let's clean up this last one. But what I'm going to do again is just search for any engons that might have slipped through. So I'm going to go piece by piece and just go to vertex mode and look for any vertexes that are not in the corners. I think we're all good actually. I think I've been a good boy on this one. Yeah, cool. So, that was stage 2. Took a little bit of time, but stage 2 is done. So now what I've done is I've gone from Photoshop to create just a big black and white image that I bring in, separate all the different elements off from each other. And then what I'm going to do is, again, duplicate these to stage 3. Stage 3, this is all kind of one big thing, though, to be honest. It's not really a stage 3. It's stage 3 is just sorting everything out and starting to arrange stuff. So I'm going to make sure I got all these selected. I'm going to center pivot, and I'm just going to put the pivot down at the bottom of the plane. On this one though, I need to put it there. There you go. So I want the pivot point in the middle but the bottom of the plane, like that. So that's D and V obviously into place, and then I can just rotate all those up like that. Oh, missed you. There we go. Some of these, I'm going to take this for instance. Now this one I want to make like a bit of a cup flower. So what I'm going to do is poke this. I'm going to grab this face. I'm going to go up to mesh, edit mesh, right here, edit mesh down to poke, and that'll poke in the middle. And all I'm going to do is grab that UV, that vertex in the middle, and pull it down. And I can also do the same one to this. So grab this face, poke it, pull it down. Very good. Awesome. So I'm also going to add a little bit of division to each of these as well. So I'm going to grab each one of these, or we'll grab them all, go to edit mesh and add divisions. Because what add divisions does, it basically, instead of, without smoothing the edges, what it does is it adds a new division going horizontally and vertically. There you go. So now what it gives me is a little bit of information that I can start to play with. Because if I move these backwards a little bit, what grass is not, or what stuff in nature is not, is strict, and it's not rigid, and it's not right angles. It's nature, it's chaos. There's lots of bends and curves and wobbles, and even rock, as hard as it is, rock has its organicness to it. So we want everything to be nice. So what I'm going to do is, after I've added that division, I'm basically just going to go through and grab each one of these, and in fact you could probably, to be betterer, what I'm going to do is copy paste these. I can't copy paste, duplicate these. So I can make just loads of different versions of these. So I'm just going to do is push them out, push them back, push that back. Just start making versions of these. You know, I'm not doing much to them. I'm just changing the shape a little bit. Like that. There you go. Now, because these are both the same shapes, because obviously I just copy paste inside Photoshop, we're not really getting any difference just yet, but wait and you will see. So I'll go through and just make these a little bit more interesting as well. Just making lots of different versions of them. There we go. Cool. So now even that, just by doing that, everything looks a little bit more organic. So you can see the steps we're doing here. You know, we're bringing it in, then we're splitting them up, and then we're starting to add a little bit of information. And then from here, what we're going to do is just spend a bit of time arranging some stuff. So I'm going to make 3 different clusters, small, medium, large, essentially. So I'm going to start off with you for this one. Start off with you. I'm going to grab you. I'm going to grab you for this one. Now, all we're going to have to do here is just rotate stuff around. And maybe tilt stuff around. And this is it for grass arrangements. Because literally, you look at grass in games and it's basically just this. I'm going to copy that and I'm just going to rotate around again. And look how I've not combined anything yet. The great thing about not combining stuff is when you just select everything as a group like this, non-combined, like that, so everything's a separate model, and you rotate it, they're all going to rotate on their own axis, so not as a group going round, they're going to rotate on their own. So what I can do is just start to rotate around, and maybe start to just move it to the side, and now I've got, you know, a little chaotic cluster. I will just smooth all these, so there you go. Look at that, a little chaotic cluster. Then I'm going to grab you. Actually, pardon me. I've already used you. I've not used you. I've not used you. Pardon me. And I've not used you, so I'll grab these 3. Do the same thing. So this I'm going to turn into a medium, but I'm also going to use this little cluster that I made here as well. So bring them together again, just doing a bit of rotation. I don't want them like really close to each other as well. I don't want them like on top of each other. I want to spread them out a little bit. That's why I'm just doing a bit of this. That's a world. There we go. There we go. Again, duplicate, rotate around a little bit, grab each one of them, you know, just do a bit of... Grab these geezers, duplicate, bring them over, start to move them around, grab the individual ones, move them, grab individual ones, scale them up a little bit, scale some down a little bit, duplicate them again, just move them, rotate them. And then grab both of these now. Duplicate again. And I'm using the chaos of the rotation to kind of, as long as I'm a bit careful with it, to give me some like really nice organic kind of chaotic shapes. There you go. So I've got 3 clusters of grass, and this is all just white at the minute as well. They've got no colours involved. So what I'm going to do now is get the colours involved. You know, I'm going to take what I've got here and bring this in. Now this is similar to how we work inside of Painter, this non-destructive way of working, at least in this this instance, because the black and white map, this guy is controlling what we see. I can basically do whatever I want underneath here, and I can make all the adjustments and all that because I'm not actually changing the shape, so I don't have to worry about repositioning UVs. Also, I don't know if you've noticed, and you might have clocked on already, but because I'm using a flat plane that's a square, and I'm using a texture which is a square, whenever I cut these up, I don't have to UV everything. It UVs itself, essentially. So with this, what I'm going to do is not take this out, because what's going to happen is when I take this out, I'm going to get black lines across around all my not even good black lines, like not black lines that look good, black lines that look terrible around my objects. Everything's going to have a little thin black line. So what I'm going to do is unclipping mask my stuff. So I'm going to release the clipping mask, and I'm going to export this, because this is what I want. Because again, it's the alpha map which is controlling what I see. Therefore, it doesn't matter what I put in here. Oops, no, that one. That's saving for web. There you go. So I'm going to export this. So this is my color. There we go. So if I just grab any old piece, go to my foliage there, because this is the material. This isn't the object. This is the material assigned to the object. So whatever I do in here again is going to affect everything. So again, my color, because that's what I'm adding, I'm going to add by clicking the checker box. It's a file because I've just made it. I go find that file. This is going to be in your images folder, in your project folder. I find the, yep, apply that, and boom, there you go, color. Now, one thing will happen, which is very, very annoying. Whenever you're dealing with transparencies in Maya, you have this kind of error happening. It's like a bug happening where things that should be at the back appear at the front, and this is called object sorting. And basically what it can't decide, it's very bad at deciding what needs to be sorted, basically what needs to be shown first, what needs to be shown last. Again, we're just checking these, so this isn't the end of the world here. This doesn't mean anything's broken, it's just Maya. So all I'm going to do here is just go to renderer, viewpoint 2.0, option box for that. And all I'm going to change is where it says transparency algorithm, I'm going to change that to depth peeling. And there you go, that fixes it. It's not perfect, but it gives us a better idea, a better result. Cool. So what I'm going to do is when I'm happy with something, I'm going to combine them together. Like that. And I'm just going to make sure that the pivot point is at the bottom of the grid. So where's my grid? There we go. Pivot point's on the ground like that. And then, as per usual, when I export these, I'm going to export these in the middle of the grid. So where is the middle of the grid? There it is. So I'm just going to move this to 0, 0, 0. There you go. And yeah, so I'm going to delete transformation, delete history, all that kind of jazz. Give it a name. So this is my static mesh foliage grass A, and then export that. And obviously I'm going to export that into my work folder for my Maya file, making sure that it's an FBX and that in geometry smoothing groups is turned on. Please remember that, because that way you're not going to have really horrible things happen to you, like visual things happen to your mess. So it's just sm underscore foliage underscore grass A. There you go. And then I can move that to the side. And you know, just do the same for us. Boop, boop, boop. So I'm going to just take this name, and this is B. Again, copy and paste that name just to make it easier and quicker. Delete history, freeze transformation, export. Oh. There you go. Move that to the side. And then the other one should be that one. Yep. So we set that to the middle of the world. This is going to be C. I'll just grab that name. Delete history from. So we should be well familiar with that by now. There we go. Now I've got my scene open somewhere. There it is. So right there, boom. Let me just turn the lights on. There we go. And we start bringing this stuff in. So obviously inside my geometry folder, I'm going to make a foliage. And of course, I'm going to add that in there. So navigate to my folder where I've got those saved. For you, it will be the scenes folder of the Maya project. Don't want them in materials, just in case. There you go. Now I didn't use Manny to scale these. I kind of eyeballed it just for the demo. Yes. Okay, so this has brought in the textures as well, which is quite nice. I'm not sure why it's done that. So let's bring these in. Whoop. So very small, very, very small. Is my Maya scene? My Maya scene's probably got the not good grid size. Yep, it's got the basic grid size. So all my stuff is really small. There we go. So I'm going to just scale everything up. Which is grass in it, so it'd be about that big. And then just again, just quickly export that. Then just override. In fact, let's just see that in action, because I do like it when it does this. I'm going to grab these. I'm going to start moving them apart from each other. There we go. So moving over there. Moving over there. I do like it when you import stuff and it kind of just explodes. I like it. That's that one. Oh, previous transformations and everything. Make sure that. There we go. And just to make sure I think I might have saved over one of them the wrong way, so do that just in case. There we go. So yeah, we go back and obviously we do the whole re-import. And now they're ever so slightly bigger. Oh, they're still actually really small, aren't they? Okay. One last one. I realise I'm messing about now. So that's that A. Export. B. Export. But again, it's long in the video just because you sat there watching me. However, when you're doing this is only taking me a couple of minutes to like make a mistake and go, oh, need to fix it. That's better, I guess. You know, grass is small anyway in it, so there you go. And then I'll keep all my materials inside here. So material-wise, here's some fun stuff with materials we have to know. So this is my Foliage. So for the, I've not got a roughness map on this yet. I've not got any norm maps on this yet. That is the benefit of doing this in Painter, Substance Painter. You can get those in there. You can get the grass or whatever looking really, really nice. So it's a standard material, except we need to get access to the opacity map. So what we need to do is turn a blend mode to translucent. And I'll just leave it like that for now. Oh, we need to actually go masked. There we go. So we're going to go masked. So translucent is when you're semi-transparent, you can kind of see through stuff. Masked should be like cut out. When we're cutting this out, because we're only doing black or white, we're not doing any grey values. And then I will. So make sure you set your blend mode to masked. Let's drag those in. Drag that into the. Oh my god, come here. There you go. Opacity masked. Color. There we go. And then apply. So then that's saved. That's all there. And then inside each one of these objects, obviously, when we load them up, all we have to do is drag that material onto there, that material onto there, and that material onto there. There you go. And then we've got some grass. It's kind of basic, but you know, grass is pretty basic. And I could always go in and judge it up, and you know, this is pretty thick grass, so I could go through and thin it out a little bit. But that's as easy as bringing it in, and that's dead good. And for what we're doing, we're not doing big fjords and massive fields, so we don't need to worry about how we'd actually physically distribute this. We make our little arrangements. Now, if we jump back into Maya, I had other stuff on that map, didn't I? So let me just move these guys to the side. And then I'll move you just up here. That's my master copy. Someone's texting me. Master copy up there. And I got all the rest of my stuff here, so I've got all this that I can start messing with. So I'll just... Okay. If I get rid of stuff, if I, you know, I'm just going to get rid of stuff I really don't need. So I don't need any of the grasses yet or anymore. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep my tall ones because, you know, they're useful to have. And this is just a bit of a faff because I accidentally modelled everything far too small. So that's my own mistake there. But let's get rid of stuff I definitely don't need anymore. I only need one red flower. I only need one yellow, one purple. I only need one of you. And we're good. Right. All good. Cool. So, now it's time to make some flowers. Now notice how I have that block of colour on my texture. In Photoshop, I've got that block of colour at the right. But I've not used it yet. So what I'm going to do is come in there and show you what I'm going to use that for. So we're back in Photoshop. So I'm going to re-clip and mask stuff. And I'm going to add a new layer above this. Clip and mask that. And on this I'm going to start just doing some fun stuff. So... this one I want to be a bit more bluer, so what I'm going to do is just drop that in there. Actually, no. Boom. Colour that. Drag you up a little bit. There we go. Change the colour a little bit. Again, just do this kind of similar stuff I did before. Like that. And then... because this is big, thicker grass, I kind of want a bit more kind of detail, I guess. So I am just going to do a little bit of painting. So lower my opacity. I'm just going to do... Actually, there's actually a fun little way we can do stuff on here. I do need to be on a separate layer though, so I'm going to make another layer. Clip and mask that layer. And in my brushes, what I want to get is a splatter brush. So I'm going to get a brush I can make some splatters with. Just snow, there you go. What's that going to do? Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to just up my opacity of that a little bit. There we go. There you go. I'm going to do that so you can see speckles in there. And all I'm going to do on this particular layer is just go to filter, blur, directional blur. A motion blur, and just stretch it. There you go. So now I've kind of got a bit of a texture. I could probably do that a bit stronger. So if I do that, here we go. I'll do another motion blur. That's better. Yeah. And the next one. Now this is going to be very simple. This is going to be just a really simple gradient kind of thing, going from a darker colour through to a lighter colour. So maybe through to a yellower kind of colour there. There you go. And then I've got one on the side there to basically do whatever I want with. Now the reason we're doing this, if I unclip and mask everything again, Now I don't have to do anything with my opacity map. All I'm going to do is replace my color map now. What I'm going to do with this is, inside the old Maya, I'm going to start making flowers and plants and stuff. First of all, I need a stem. I need something to sit these flowers on top of. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to use anything from my normal poly shelf. I'm just going to go to create polygon primitives where the rest of the polygon stuff is. And I'm going to use a prism. A prism. And a prism is just a prism. We all know what a prism is. Three-sided shape. So I'm going to take the top and the bottom off. I'm going to make it really thin. And again, this is good to kind of get a reference, like size reference for this. I am still kind of eyeballing this. Knowing that each one of these squares is about 11.25 centimeters. Somewhere around there. So, make the length of my flower stem. So this is my flower stem. I'm making a flower stem. And the reason why I'm keeping it as a prism and not a cube or a cylinder, you don't need... Think about how small these things are. Also think about how many there are going to be. So, if I do something like that... obviously you can tell all the sharp edges there, but if I come in and go to soften edge, you know, now it looks round. Round enough. I'm going to give a few edges going down the length of it. So something like that. Cool. And then here's the best bit. I'm going to UV this and give it its texture that we've already created. So I'm going to apply that foliage 1 texture to it. So you can see, because it's got transparencies on it, it gets a bit funky. But what I'm going to do is just do a dead simple UV on this and then put it in place. So let me get my UV editor up. And I'm going to just do a planar projection, either X or Z, doesn't matter. Like that. That's all I need. Oh yes, if you have this little icon up here at the top right turned on, you can actually see the color map which is applied to. And what I'm doing is I'm just moving the UV over that section. And just making sure that it's like that. Boom, there you go. You've got a stem. And if for whatever reason I wanted it to have this kind of texture on it, I can do that. It's kind of like the same stuff we've been doing with trim sheets. As I keep talking about trim sheets, you know, it's the same kind of jazz. I'm moving the UV to where I want it to go. Now this is also a unique time as well, using this UV, because I don't need to unfold this. I don't need to unfold it, because it's just a solid gradient. There's no issues with doing what I'm doing there. This is one of the only times I'd ever do something like that. Normally I would have to put a cut and I'd have to unfold it. This is one of the only occasions where I don't have to. In fact, it's probably the only occasion where I can do this. Cool. So that's my flower stem. So I'll leave that to the side for a sec. Move these over here for a sec. So what I'm going to do is grab this, duplicate it, move it to the middle of the world. I'm going to start building a flower. So I can start to, you know, change my shape. I'm going to make it a bit thinner, but I'm going to grab this geezer. Make sure the pivot point is at the bottom there. And bring it into place. So snap it to the top of my flower like that. And I can just make some adjustments. So maybe I want to add an edge or two at the top here. So I can just do a little bit of something like this. Less for scientific accuracy, more for in a massive cluster. This is what the player is going to see, and they'll just say okay, you know, as long as it's not clipping through. That's another thing. I don't want this clipping through. There you go. Actually, you know what? That's probably a reason why I might use a cube actually. So let's just make a decision change, because how easy was that? Let's make a cube instead. Because this is based off a cube, so what I can do is align the edges. So, you know, I've made a decision. It's not a bad one at all, you know. I thought maybe a prism might be good. In fact, you know, I'm making several things here. I'm going to bring that prism back. So I'm still going to keep that prism, because maybe I might use that for something else. But yeah, I'm going to bring that in here. Because the same thing's going to happen on this. Exactly the same thing. Again, planar project this. I can just do the UV in right away. Planar. Assign that foliage material to it. Move that down to where I want it to be. So like there. Good. Soften edge, so then we're losing all the sharp angles. Add a few divisions down the length. And then 2 more at the top, because that's where I'm going to make this kind of like shape occur. So I can grab that. Kind of cradle the bottom of the... So this is why I changed it to a cube on this one, because, you know, it cups it nicely underneath like that. Oops, a daisy, come here. There we go. There you go. It's almost a flower. So I'm going to take one of these petals. Again, pivot point at the bottom. So let's center the pivot point at the bottom. There we go. So for this, what I'm going to do is, again, add a couple of divisions, maybe 3 divisions going down like this. And then 1 going down the middle. Because now what I can do is start to give it a bit of bend. Give it a bit of a bend. Look at that. Now we've got a leaf. And as you've seen in different examples from the videos I've made, when you get up close to some of this stuff in games, it does look like crap. Because that's all you need. You know. Now again, this is just paying attention to nature, you know. Just kind of knowing how plants and petals kind of, you know, bend with gravity. It makes it a bit thinner in the middle. There you go. Boom. Isn't that lovely? And obviously you can spend a bit more time on that. So I'm going to do now, just to finish this off, combine, pivot point at the bottom in the middle of the world. I'm going to duplicate that because maybe I might want to use these for something else. Because I'm actually going to do something with this in a second anyway. Like that. But because I'm excited, what I'm going to do is say, right, okay, this is done. I'm going to add a bit more flavor and dimension to this. Oops, there we go. Just checking the time of this. Okay, for about an hour into it. I'm going to go use a bend deformer. So I'm going to go to deform with it selected. Make sure the pivot point's at the bottom. Delete history, freeze transformations as well. Deform, non-linear, bend. Before I do anything, I'm just going to put the pivot point at the bottom. So I'm going to hold V or X just to make sure it's snapped to the middle of the grid. Like that. And then in my channel box, the low bound I can set that to 0 because that's not going to do anything. But in the high bound I can set that to above 2 so it affects the entire thing. And then start to curve it. Now the great thing again about this is because the deformation, the deform handle is controlling the shape of this, so I can move this around. I can even move it up and down the length if I only want the curve to be applied. So actually, this is really cool to do. I do like doing this. If I move it up to the top here, I can apply more of a curve here. Like that. And then I will delete history, getting rid of the curve. And you can see there, so we've got a bend, which, you know, that might be okay. Let's copy that off. Now we're going to put another deformer on this. Same jazz. Put it to the middle of the thing, middle of the grid. Low bound off. Let's move it up actually. High bound higher than 2. Low bound set to 0. Add a curvature. And then you can delete that. Let's duplicate that because we might want to use one of those. And then the last one, I will again add a blend deformer, blend. Set to the bottom, set to the middle, low bound to 0, high bound to above 2, curvature. So because of the low poly nature of this, it is stretching a little bit, but you know, oh, maybe even do something like that. Oh, look at that. So by using multiple blends, I'm able to kind of give it a bit of a wobble. Or even just, you know, no, it's not liking that too much. Although, I don't know. That's interesting. There you go. Interesting little shape there. Boom. And then for this, I just need to go through and fix stuff, so make sure I don't see stuff poking through. There you go. Right. So you can see how quick it is to make kind of flowers like that. Now what I said I was going to do with this is, what I'm going to do is just duplicate this top bit again. Like this. So I'm going to do, so all it is, I've got another version of that top of the leaf head there. I'm going to rotate around. I'm going to scale it up. Move it up. Rotate around. And we'll see how successful this is in a minute, because we can also, we're not just dealing with this geometry in a minute, we can also deal with other geometry depending on how successful stuff is. So what I've done there is I've tried to make a kind of a rose hedge kind of shape. But because this is all flat, it's a bit hard to see what's going on. So I'm going to jump back into Photoshop. Hey, we're in and out. Reclip and mask everything. And this time what I'm going to do is put just above my... No, don't delete anything. There you go. I'm going to clip and mask that. I'm going to mix a bit towards the purple. And I'm going to make this multiply. Soft. Like that. And then I'm going to get another layer. Grab this, make it a bit more yellow. A bit more intense. I'm just going to brush the tips of the flowers. Really, really basic. I mean, that's a really, really basic one. Obviously, I can take time to make it much nicer if I wanted to. Unclip and mask everything again. Look at how messy it is. Is that actually clipping it? That might actually be clipping into some of the grass, so maybe... Actually, you know what? I'll take it off, but that's not actually such a bad thing there. So... There you go. Right, yeah, so unclip and mask everything. Save that out. Override the ting. Jump back into the ting. Actually, we set it to foliage. Do that. Boom, there you go. Okay, so what I've tried to do there is something, it's not quite successful. But don't be disheartened because this is 3D. I mean, it doesn't look bad, that. It just doesn't look super, super perfect. I can still arrange stuff. I can still adjust stuff. I can still play with stuff. You know, I can do stuff like this. But as you can see, it's also very straight. Very rigid. And like I keep saying, nature is chaos and stuff. So, you know, that's looking okay. You know, I like the colours and stuff. But what I can also do is remember my master material there. I was like, okay, I've got that bit there. What I'm going to do is make a disc instead. So here's a disc. And I'm going to it's just a piece of geometry, that's all it is. So disc is just up here. like that. You can also make a cylinder and just delete all faces except the very top face for this, but what I'm going to do is go through the settings to find what I want. And I don't use discs all that often, so I kind of forget which one I need. Is it pi? It's not pi. Is it cap? Okay, I want cap. I want sides to be 6, subdivisions to be 1 or 2 at most, literally at most. So I'll do 1 like that. Cool. I'm going to do a planar y-axis projection on this, as you would do. Yep, so I'm going to apply that foliage material to that. Again, oh, not looking quite good, but and all I'm going to do is just grab that, scale it down. What you can also do as well, because you can't see the alpha map on here, and what I'm trying to do now is aim for the alpha map. Because I've got an alpha map applied up here at the top right, where we've got our checkerboard and we've got our texture thing, you've also got like a little drop down arrow, and I can actually go and say, show me the alpha map. There we go. So what I'm going to do is move that over the top, like that. So now that's what it looks like. There you go. And just do the same thing as I did there. All I gotta do is make a bit of a cup.